Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Michael, and this is the story of how I learned I'd rather live alone than stay married to a woman who was ashamed of me as her husband. After more than a decade of marriage, Catherine began pulling away from me. The intimacy we once shared, the warmth, the affection, slowly faded until our relationship felt cold and mechanical. At first, she just kept to her own side of the bed. Then she began going to sleep at completely different times, ensuring we no longer shared even the quiet moments before drifting off together. Whenever there was a chance to simply enjoy being a couple, Catherine would find something to keep herself busy. Work, emails, chores. Physical intimacy became nearly non-existent. Her excuses varied. Too tired from work, too stressed, headaches, or simply not in the mood. What used to be a natural, loving part of our bond started to feel like a duty she wanted to avoid at all costs. The only time she showed me any warmth was when she needed me to step in and handle something she couldn't manage herself. Once the problem was solved, she would go right back to treating me like a distant roommate. It felt like she wanted a husband only when it benefited her, but wanted to live like she was single when it came to emotional and physical closeness. Marriage had become, for her, a practical arrangement, not a partnership. At first, I made excuses for her behavior. She had recently been promoted to operations director and was under a lot of pressure, managing a bigger team and dealing with bigger projects. I told myself she was just exhausted, that every marriage goes through less romantic phases, that the honeymoon stage had to end eventually. I believed that once she adjusted to her new role, our closeness would return. But with time, I saw this wasn't just a rough patch. This was becoming our new normal. Catherine was no longer simply distracted by stress. She was actively treating me with disregard. Her dismissiveness went from occasional to constant. She would interrupt me mid-sentence, ignore my questions, roll her eyes when I tried to talk about anything deeper than household logistics. When I asked her what was wrong or tried to have a serious conversation about our relationship, she'd shut me down. She would insist nothing was wrong, dismiss my concerns, or walk away. According to her, I was overly sensitive and expecting too much from a busy, successful woman. If I brought up our lack of intimacy, she would accuse me of being needy or clingy, telling me I had to accept that we weren't young college kids anymore who could spend all our time wrapped up in each other. Her words said everything was fine, but her actions told a different story. She continued rejecting my affection and treating me with icy detachment. The gap between what she said and how she acted made me question my own sanity. The criticism became relentless. She found fault with everything. The way I dressed, my haircut, where I suggested we eat, my opinions, even how I interacted with my family. I started tiptoeing around her just to avoid setting her off. And then I noticed something. One complaint seemed to come up over and over again. Catherine had been promoted several times over the years and was now earning nearly double my salary as a regional sales manager. It became clear that she no longer saw me as her equal. She would compare me to men she considered more successful, mentioning their cars, houses, vacations, making me feel small in my own marriage. The final straw came one evening over something trivial. I had left a few dishes in the sink after dinner. When Catherine saw them, she exploded. She yelled about my laziness and lack of respect, but then she went further, cutting much deeper. She told me I wasn't in her league financially or professionally, and that I should be grateful she hadn't left me for someone better. She said women at her level wouldn't settle for someone who made as little as I did. Hearing those words crushed my self-esteem. The woman I had shared 12 years of my life with had just told me she was doing me a favor by staying married. I stood there silently, not wanting to escalate things, though her words hurt me more than I could express. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, my mind racing. I started thinking of ways to improve myself, to earn more, to become the kind of man she would respect again. But the more I thought, the more impossible it felt to meet the expectations she seemed to have. The following week, I threw myself into work. I stayed late at the office, took on new projects, networked aggressively. I stopped coming home early to try to please her or avoid her nagging. Instead, I focused on advancing my career, hoping a higher salary would make her treat me differently. But the more I worked, the worse things got between us. Catherine didn't see my long hours as ambition. She saw them as further proof I wasn't good enough. She would make sarcastic remarks about me finally trying to build a career, then in the same breath complain that I was never home. As time passed, she became even crueler. She would mock me in front of friends and family, making jokes about my job and my earnings as though my dignity didn't matter. Her disrespect was no longer just private, it was public. Still, I tried to hold on to the marriage. I complimented her, tried to be affectionate, showed small acts of love. Every time, she shot me down with sarcasm or criticism. Then came the invitation to a close friend's 25th wedding anniversary party. At first, Catherine refused to go, claiming work commitments. After I gently pushed, she reluctantly agreed. On the day of the party, I wore my best suit and took care to look sharp, hoping to remind her of the man she once fell in love with. She looked stunning in her dress, and I told her so, sincerely. As always, she brushed off my compliment with a dismissive remark. At the party, she played the perfect wife in public, smiling, chatting, acting like everything between us was fine. For a moment, I almost believed it might be a chance for us to reconnect. Then, while we were talking with friends, I instinctively reached for her hand, a simple, natural gesture of affection. She immediately yanked it away, loudly saying, "Don't let them think we're a couple." Her words were loud enough that others nearby heard. In that moment, something inside me broke. After months of criticism, humiliation, and emotional distance, this was a final blow. I stood up, looked her in the eye, and said calmly, "From this moment, we are not." Then I left the party without another word, leaving her there to find her own way home. When she got home hours later, she was furious, accusing me of embarrassing her, calling me childish, insisting I had misunderstood her. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Her reaction only confirmed what I already knew. I was done. That night, I searched for divorce attorneys and made an appointment for the next morning. I explained to the lawyer that I wasn't interested in counseling or reconciliation. I wanted a quick, clean end. While I waited for the paperwork to be filed, I became a ghost in my own house. No small talk, no greetings, no attempt to engage. Catherine seemed confused at first, but never asked what was wrong. For me, that silence was peaceful. I was finally done trying to win the affection of someone who clearly didn't value me. When the divorce papers were ready, I handed them to her without a word. She looked shocked, asking only, "Is this what you want?" I didn't reply. My silence was answer enough. The divorce process was straightforward. On my lawyer's advice, I sought a fair settlement. Part of our home's equity, half our savings, and short-term spousal support. Catherine wasn't happy about it, but I no longer cared. Once the divorce was finalized, I moved into a smaller place and started over. I focused on healing, going to therapy, reconnecting with friends, rebuilding my confidence. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again. 3 years later, Catherine reached out via text. She tried to sound friendly, asking how I was doing, saying she'd been thinking about our time together. I ignored her first message, but when she followed up, I asked what she really wanted. She said she wanted to meet. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When she arrived, she delivered a long, emotional apology, admitting she had disrespected me, taken me for granted, and that I had been a good husband. She told me she had dated since the divorce, and now realized how rare loyalty and devotion were. She admitted that humiliating me at that anniversary party had been cruel and regretted it deeply. I let her speak without interruption. She eventually said she didn't want to remarry me, just to have me in her life as a friend or someone she could talk to. I thanked her for apologizing, acknowledged that it must have taken courage, and told her I forgave her, but made it clear there was no place for her in my life anymore. I explained that she had once been my entire world, but sitting there listening to her now, I felt nothing. The love I once had for her was gone, burned away by years of disrespect. Forgiveness did not mean reconciliation. I asked her not to contact me again. She left disappointed, but understood that I meant what I said. Looking back, I know I made the right choice. Some bridges, once burned, should never be rebuilt. My life is peaceful now, free from constant criticism and emotional games. What Catherine taught me is simple. You cannot make someone respect you by loving them harder. Either they see your worth or they don't. Walking away was painful, but was the only way to reclaim my self-respect and my life.